Hey there, how's it going? My name is Lerxst and thank you for joining me today as we take a brief look back at the Nintendo GameCube while delving into something I've been captivated by for some time now, console modding. A couple of years ago, I stumbled upon a video demonstrating the amazing process of bringing a Game Boy Advance back to life, with the implementation of an IPS screen, new housing and buttons, and a USB-C rechargeable battery.
I was blown away because as a child I had a Game Boy SP but always preferred the wider feel of the Game Boy Advance. However, I could never get past the lack of a backlit screen and having to continuously feed it double A's. After sitting on it for a while, I decided to go through with the project myself, and have been for the most part pleased with how it turned out.
Even if the screen is just a bit off center. All in all, it was a very enjoyable and rewarding experience. From there I began looking further into the wide realm of console mods, yet I remained hesitant on performing another hardware mod project for some time, so that I wouldn't risk butchering one of my consoles by mistake. I wanted to wait until I had a damaged system, or at least a spare to work on. The Nintendo GameCube was the first console I owned. Since receiving it back in 2005, my brother and I have spent years collecting and playing through its incredible library of games. Luigi's Mansion and Sonic Adventure DX in particular stick out to me, as the hours spent doing gold portrait runs and raising Chow hold some of the best summer vacation memories from my childhood and adolescence.
To this day, I find myself going back consistently to complete games I never finished, as well as discovering new favorites I didn't get to play back then.
I also love to take my GameCube on trips with me, given its wonderful selection of multiplayer games and 4 controller ports. It makes for some fun days in when you're out of town with friends. I have chosen to modify a GameCube because of my love for the system, and I just so happen to have one with a busted disk drive. We'll be installing the PicoBoot mod developed by WebHDX. Simply put, it is a disk drive workaround that will allow us to load games and homebrew software directly from a microSD card without the use of a boot disk or exploit game. I'll leave a link down below to the GitHub page with all of WebHDX's official assets for this mod, as well as a comprehensive video guide on how to perform it by Macho Nacho Productions, which I will be following along to while I proceed with the installation.
I want to preface this by saying I have very little soldering experience, so this will be a journey for the both of us, but if I can do it, so can you.
Let's start by disassembling the GameCube. First, we'll take a game bit screwdriver and remove the 4 screws on the bottom. Next, we'll slip the shell off and carefully disconnect the ribbon cable connected from the controller board to the console. Let's put the controller board to the side and remove 2 screws holding down the cooling fan. Then, we can unplug the power cable and remove the fan setup as well as the back wall cover. That will allow us to remove 12 screws securing the disk drive along with 4 screws sitting on top of the memory card ports. We can then go ahead and lift up the disk drive, setting it aside for now. Doing so will expose the motherboard and heatsink. Finally, we'll want to remove the 6 screws securing the heatsink and very carefully wiggle it around to detach it from the motherboard. With everything out of the way, we can begin soldering. Since we are modding a DOL001 model, I'll go ahead and refer to WebHDX's wiring diagram for this unit. Much like Tito did in his tutorial, I'd like to begin by tinning these legs on the IPL chip and soldering on the wires that will attach to the GP6 and GP7 pins on the Pico. Next, we'll go ahead and bridge these two pins together so that we can solder to ground. I also stripped the wire down a bit to ensure a solid connection, as was recommended in the tutorial. Finally, we can solder on the last two wires that will connect to the GP5 and 3v3 pins respectively. Let's add some heat shrink tubing around the wires to ensure no snags and to keep them safe once the disk drive is reinstalled. Let's go ahead and replace the thermal pads on the heatsink. Cut them to size and carefully place them onto each chip. Once that's done, we can reinstall the heatsink and start putting the Gamecube back together. Before putting the shell back on, let's grab our Raspberry Pi Pico and load it with the firmware necessary to function. Again, I'll leave the GitHub page with the modification assets and Macho Nacho's tutorial for this mod linked in the description. We can then begin to solder the wires poking out from our Gamecube to the Pico. Now that our Pico is set up, we can mount it to the Gamecube with some double-sided tape.
Finally, we can finish putting the Gamecube back together. We can then eject the SD card from our PC and insert it into the SD2 SP2 adapter. If everything has been done correctly, we will boot directly into Swiss and have access to our games and other homebrew applications. Bro, it fucking worked. Oh my god. If I may be so brutally honest, I didn't think it was gonna fucking work. Seriously, I didn't think it was gonna work. For real.
I have to say, this is one of the best ways to experience the GameCube's library. Having access to all my games from an SD card is unbelievable. No longer will I have to worry about losing a game on vacation or at a friend's house, which with the way some of these titles are priced, could not have come at a better time. With all the necessary tools and equipment, this mod cost me around $80 give or take. I borrowed the soldering iron from my brother, but bought everything else.
So if you happen to already have a good chunk of this material, it shouldn't set you too far back. Believe me, it is very much worth it. I'd like to close by saying I love working on projects like this. It gives me immense joy giving new life to a console that I've been playing for almost 20 years.
Knowing I'll be able to enjoy it for years to come, solo or with friends.
Feel free to leave a comment detailing your thoughts about the GameCube, your memories with the system, or what you would like to see next. Until next time, my name is Lerxst. Take care now.
Nice. Yeah, that's hot.